are the 5 most underrated WWE wrestlers ever. That's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. And in this one, Dylan, we have the 5 most underrated wrestlers of all time. You know, we love to give the spotlight to people that we think don't get it enough. So that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. And also, we are basing this off of people who don't get enough credit. Who we think don't get enough credit from the fans. So how easy did you find this list?
It was easy to come up with a bunch of people, I would say. Hard to kind of narrow it down, of course. Also say it was a little bit more difficult to kind of toe the line of underrated and underutilized. So, for example, I'm just going to give this. He may be a guy that's on your list.
Okay.
But he's not on mine because this is somebody that I viewed much more as underutilized rather than underrated.
Okay.
And that was Dolph Ziggler. Right?
Okay.
So Dolph Ziggler's not on my underrated list because I think the fans are pretty much in unison and in agreement that Dolph Ziggler is incredible.
Yeah.
And could have been so much more in WWE if they gave him the opportunities. So that's I tried to go more away from guys like that and more toward guys that while it's definitely going to be a combination of pretty much all of these guys are also underutilized. For me, it is people that did accomplish and make a significant mark. Did accomplish a pretty significant amount and make a significant mark, and they don't get quite the credit for it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I tried to very much go more toward there, although there's a ton of overlap in people that are underrated and underutilized. Almost anybody that's underrated is probably underutilized. So
yeah. Also, this is just our opinions on wrestlers. We're not saying this is fact. We're just saying we think these wrestlers don't get the credit that they should get. So, Dylan, we both have some honorable mentions here. So why don't you get into yours first, and then I'll get into mine.
Yeah, so I actually have 5 honorable mentions.
Okay.
So they're not in any particular order. So the first one I have is Lance Storm. I think Lance Storm is one of the greatest what could have been kind of with that ruthless aggression, early 2000s, late 90s era of he was an incredible mid-card guy and tag team guy. So many people talk about him who were in the ring with him as one of the best in-ring competitors of that time, and just never really gets the, I would say, proper recognition, especially when it comes to his significance in the tag team division, mainly because he had so many different partners. I think he had a ton of different tag team partners, but I think he was kind of a staple in the WWE/WWF tag team division. So Lance Storm is my first one. Did you want me to just go through all 5, or do you want to?
Yeah, you can go through all 5. Lance Storm's also a great trainer too.
Yes, indeed. And you'll hear, just hearing wrestlers talk about him is another indication of how great he was. So next on my list is The Miz. The Miz, 2-time Grand Slam champion.
Love The Miz.
The Miz, who I think at this point in his career, he does get a lot of credit, but still probably doesn't get the amount of credit that he quite deserves for being such a staple and figurehead of the company for 20 years now. He's been one of, if not, he's been one of the most reliable guys that this company's ever had. And the accomplishments speak for itself. He's one of the greatest intercontinental champions of all time, in my opinion, especially of this modern era. He is the greatest of all time, in my opinion, of this modern era of intercontinental champions. I'd say Gunther kind of marked the first transition into this new era of IC champions, but before that, especially when we had the rebrand of the white strap, that Cody is actually the one who brought that back. But When I think of the rebranded white strap IC title, I think of the Miz.
Agreed.
Uh, the Miz is one that I think will get a lot more credit once it's all said and done. Maybe years from now, but doesn't get quite the credit he deserves.
Okay.
The next one is John Morrison. John Morrison is incredible. Such a staple in the WWE tag team division for
especially for us growing up.
I seriously, man, between two really great tag teams that he was a part of with Eminem, with Joey Mercury and Melina, and then of course he had a long run multiple times with the Miz and Miz and Morrison. And John Morrison, to me, just constantly stood out as one of the most exciting in-ring competitors to watch on a regular basis. He feel like during his second run when he came back, his run with the Miz really cemented how incredible he is, and how he's incredibly, like, he's ripped, he's attractive, but he's able to make fun of himself and play that goofy character, and don't think he gets enough credit for it. So yeah, John Morrison is the next one.
Yeah, John Morrison is a great person that I didn't think of for this list, especially the work he's doing now in AEW.
Absolutely. And then I have Umaga. Umaga, of course,
love Umaga.
Pretty much a staple of our childhood growing up. Just so good at portraying that just absolute monster, right? I mean, just a guy that I was legitimately terrified of as a child, and just does not get enough credit for what he did before he was Umaga, obviously, but then when he transitioned into Umaga, and the way he really took on that character and gave it a complete, it just had this aura about it that was so monstrous, so scary. The way he moved in the ring, I mean, it's similar to Jacob Fatu, really. I think Umaga's probably Jacob Fatu before we had Jacob Fatu, right?
Yep.
And before we all realized it and recognized it. The way he was able to move at his size, when I think of that Oval IC title, he's one of the first people I think of. Not a ton of reigns with it, but obviously just a dominant champion. Yes. Incredible feuds with Jeff Hardy and John Cena, I remember from my childhood, and of course Bobby Lashley. And then the last one, which I don't know if this will catch some people by surprise on my honorable mentions of most underrated wrestlers, but that's Becky Lynch. I don't think Becky Lynch gets the credit she deserves. I think she is an absolute pioneer, not only in wrestling, but women's wrestling. I think she broke down barriers when it comes to getting women the respect they deserve. And her run as the man is one of the greatest runs and peaks of a wrestler that we've seen. And I think that people are starting to forget that. Like, that run was so special. She main evented WrestleMania when it was one night. It was one night. And nobody had a problem with it. Everyone loved it. Yeah. Everyone was so happy that she was main eventing WrestleMania. So, and I think the way that she's reinvented herself time and time again, we've seen her do it again now with this new run, and now she's come back and won the Intercontinental Championship. I think she's someone who genuinely got herself over with the fans and with the crowd. It was someone that they did not intend on making the top star that she is. She forced them to. And then when she became that top star, she flourished and did incredibly well at it. And not only that, she's done what she's now gotten into a position where she's doing what top stars should do. Like when she came back and took that title off Bianca, and it all led to Bianca getting a huge WrestleMania win over Becky Lynch, and it meant so much, and it was like putting over Bianca, and that was really, to me, that was Bianca was great, but that was what pushed Bianca to the next level, right? And now, obviously, people call her Becky Hogan for getting this title, but I think her holding this title is great for the division. So that's all I really have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. I know you will. I think that anybody can make the argument that Becky's the greatest women's wrestler of all time.
Easily.
And I think she should crack lists of the greatest wrestlers ever in general.
Easily.
All right, so I'll get into my honorable mentions here, Dylan. I got 4 of them. And to kick us off, I've got Finlay. I don't think Finlay gets enough credit. He was a staple of our childhood growing up. He was a constant figurehead of the mid-card scene for a very long time. And even before WWE, he was a very, very, very good wrestler. His son is now in New Japan Pro Wrestling, I believe, and he's one of the better wrestlers over there as well. And I believe, I don't know if he's a trainer, but I think he may be, and I'm pretty sure he works in the behind the scenes for WWE currently. And I think Finlay is someone who just doesn't get enough credit for just being a staple of the mid-card division and their in-ring ability.
No doubt. Finlay was definitely somebody that I considered putting on my list. He is, I mean, one of the great mid-card wrestlers that we remember of our childhood, and that was the end of his career, right? So he's definitely made his mark, and he was definitely somebody I considered having as well.
So the next honorable mention is going to be William Regal. I don't think William Regal gets nearly enough credit for just how good he was. If you wanted to see how good a wrestler was on your roster, you put him in a match with William Regal and he'll let you know, and he will either expose them or he will let them prove themselves. I think he is one of the better in-ring performers of all time, one of the great villains I think that we have ever seen, and he's someone, obviously, a great mind to have in wrestling behind the scenes currently, so I had to throw William Regal on this list.
Yeah, man, love William Regal, and I don't want to say too much about him because I might be talking about him a little bit later.
Okay. All right, so moving on to my next one, Dylan, we have somebody who is a current active wrestler, and they are somebody who is finally starting to get the flowers and credit that they deserve, and that's going to be Chad Gable. Now, I think Chad Gable as a whole, when his career is done, I think he will probably get the credit that he deserves, but I think more so over these past few months, we've been seeing more and more people talk about how good Gable is in ring, on the mic, whatever you need, entertainment-wise. Chad Gable is your guy. He's Kurt Angle 2.0 without being a direct ripoff of Kurt Angle, and I'm even talking before the singles run in tag team action. He doesn't get enough credit with him and Jason Jordan as American Alpha. My God, those are some of the best tag matches in NXT history. So Chad Gable is one of those guys that obviously he got a tough draw with the Shorty G gimmick. If Triple H was in charge earlier in his career, who knows the success that Chad Gable could have had earlier. So Chad Gable, I will happily throw on this list.
Yeah, man, Chad Gable, not on my list, but definitely another name that I mentioned who made my long list of people when I just started throwing out names that came to mind, and Chad Gable was definitely one of those names. Just an incredible guy. Obviously, both of us such big fans of him. And I can't wait to see how his career continues to flourish. Should have been a mid-card champion by now at least, but I think it's happening. I think it's happening sometime soon.
Yeah, let's hope so. And lastly, Dylan, is going to be Baron Corbin, hence the T-shirt.
Nice.
If you know the Burning Hammer, you know we love Baron Corbin. I think he had a great run in NXT, and then he kind of just got a tough draw once he got called up. King of the Ring winner, and then obviously just kind of floated around for a little bit. One of the best finishers in wrestling, one of the best even signature moves in wrestling, and I think they dropped the ball, especially in this recent run that he had in WWE, but I think you're kind of seeing it now with Bishop Dyer, him on the indies, that he is a top star and he has all of the tools that you need to be a top star in this business. So again, happy to throw Baron Corbin on this list. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for just how good that he is.
Yeah, man, it's crazy to think that the amount of times they kept him on the roster through times where he was struggling, and then it feels like he finally is at a point to where he is fully developed into somebody who could just be an absolute star, and then they release him. But he's, like you said, getting the opportunity to show it as Bishop Dyer on the indies, and he didn't make it to my list, but don't know how it was a name that I didn't think of, because I mean, yeah, we've been big fans of the guy for a long time, and he's incredible.
Yeah, so he is somebody who I actually I had on my list, but I had to bump off due to a late submission of somebody that I thought of.
Okay.
So you want to kick us off with your number 5, Dylan?
Yeah, man, I will kick us off with my number 5, and I'm betting we got some crossover here. So
Okay.
interesting to see like where on our 5 we have people line up the same.
Sure.
So my number 5 is Shelton Benjamin, the GOAT.
Okay.
So Shelton Benjamin, a 3-time Intercontinental Champion, 1-time U.S. Champ, and 3-time Tag Team Champ. One of the best in-ring competitors of all time.
Yes.
His amateur wrestling background is talked about, but is not talked about enough. The guy's an Olympic athlete. He is one of the greatest ever, other than Kurt Angle, to make the transition from amateur wrestling to professional wrestling. Never got the proper. I don't think he was ever given the proper tools to really succeed at the level that he was capable of. If maybe it was a manager or just a faction of some sort at his time, but he was so incredible, and he had an aura to him that
Big time.
You know, as the gold standard and the greatest tag team in the world, I think it was what they were called, right?
Yes.
With Charlie Haas, and then of him as the gold standard is an IC champion that I remember incredibly fondly growing up. So, like I said with Umaga earlier, when I think of that Oval IC title, Shelton Benjamin is one of the guys I think of, and doesn't nearly get enough credit for just the amount of absolute bangers that he put on in WWE. So he's my number 5.
All right. He is someone who I had on my initial list when I was coming up with this. He was one of the people that I thought of, but I felt like I came up with a few other people that I wanted to get on this list instead of him. But yeah, Shelton Benjamin, I mean, my goodness, you talk like you said. He is one of the people that I think of the Oval IC title. I can so clearly just picture him with his blonde hair and those white and blue biker shorts. One of the biker shorts innovators, Dylan. All right, so my number 5, and this is someone who potentially will be higher up on your list. I hope he's on your list. If he's not, I'll be a little disappointed, and that's going to be Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross is a 2-time NXT champ, and that is it for his WWE career. He is someone who now we are finally start to get the credit that he deserves, but he is someone who me and Dylan have talked about months and months and months ago as someone who we think could be a top star if just given the right tools and given the right pathway there. He's someone who was very dominant in NXT with those 2-time NXT champion runs. That was back when nobody did that really. Like, they did not have multi-time NXT champions, and he was probably one of the first to do it. And then they brought him up to the main roster, and I don't know why, if it was Vince, but obviously they just didn't see something in him. They gave him that weird attire that's famously now known when he had his match against Jeff Hardy, and then he kind of just like fell to the wayside, and then obviously winded up getting released and then re-signed, and obviously he's been doing such great work recently. Finally, we are going to see him back in ring in the coming weeks, because Sammy's going to be having a feud with him. So it's nice to see that they can finally, hopefully, start to capitalize on Karrion Kross. But I think he is someone, not even just over these past few months, but through his entire career, never got enough credit for how good he was.
Yeah, man. You know me. I love Karrion Kross. I think he's main event caliber. Not on my list, but I think that's more just to do. I don't think Karrion Kross has a lot more career ahead of him that he will kind of simmer down over time. I very much tried to do people who I think are I try to do people who I think have accomplished their biggest moment already.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think very much are still ahead of Karrion Kross. But with that being said, not mad at the answer at all, because I mean, he's somebody I definitely would have been happy to put on my list. I love the guy. One of the best NXT champions. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I mean, he's wrestling tonight on Raw, so hopefully this is the start of us getting to see a lot more of Karrion Kross.
Please. All right, talk us through your number 4, Dylan.
Yeah, so my number 4 is Jake the Snake Roberts.
Okay.
So Jake the Snake Roberts.
Going way back.
Going way back. Surprisingly so, Jake the Snake Roberts, no championships in the WWE. He never won a championship inside the WWE. It's kind of an infamous thing that kind of holds with his legacy, is that he's never won a title in WWE, but he won plenty of titles outside of WWE, NWA, WCW, and so the reason I chose Jake the Snake Roberts is I think Jake the Snake truly kind of transcended professional wrestling as a character. I think Jake the Snake was pretty much the first real representation and example of a tweener, right? I think characters and gimmicks were much more cut and dry back then. And in Jake the Snake was a blend of authenticity and charisma that was completely different from everybody at his time. If you hear his peers talk about him, if you look at his promos and you watch the things he did compared to just say, look at people now and people then, it's way more like what people are doing now than what people were doing then.
Yeah.
He was truly ahead of his time. One of the first, like I said, real examples of a tweener. And I think he transcended professional wrestling in a way that so many people just know the name Jake the Snake Roberts.
Yeah.
And to hear that he has never won a championship in WWE is
hard to believe.
If you don't know off the top of your head that fact, then it's something that is hard to believe, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously, substance abuse issues took a rampant toll on his career, and who knows the heights he could have been to without his substance abuse issues. But I just don't think he gets the credit he deserves for being one of the first real examples of blending real authenticity into your gimmick, even though obviously Jake the Snake was a gimmick and a character. If you hear him talk, that anger, that hatred, that all comes from real life experience, and you feel it, right? You feel that genuineness, and I think it was one of the first examples of wrestling fans being able to experience that genuine connection where you're like, this guy, like, this isn't it's not bullshit. It's something that he's got power behind what he's saying. So I think the best comparison to make is I think he was kind of Stone Cold before we had Stone Cold in a way. So Jake the Snake Roberts going way back for my number 4.
I think Jake the Snake is a great example of how important a name is in wrestling, because like the number of people that any person over the age of 40, if you ask them who Jake the Snake is, they know who Jake the Snake is, dude. Like it's crazy. And yeah, agree with all of the points that you made there. Jake the Snake. I actually did not know he never won a title in WWE prior to this, so that is very, very surprising. So I'll move on to my number 4, Dylan, because it is somebody who you have mentioned already. This is somebody who is a 9-time tag team champion, a 2-time United States champion, an 8-time Intercontinental champion, a 2-time WWE World Champion, a 1-time Money in the Bank winner, but a 2-time successful cash-inner, and that is going to be Mike the Miz Mizanin. I think that although he does kind of start to get a lot more credit now, like you said, I don't think he gets enough credit. Even though all of the high praises he does get currently, it's not enough. The Miz is incredible. Being a staple for probably, like you said, I think it's around 20 years at this point, maybe more, says a lot to how good he is. Because even though he may not have been the biggest star, the top guy in the company for that entire time, being featured on television weekly, always having a storyline, always being out there and doing something says so much about how much faith they had in him and the amount of trust they had in The Miz. So I'm happy to put him on my list.
Yeah, man. I mean, I talked about him a bit earlier, 2-time Grand Slam champion. I mean, one of the best to ever do it. He's been with the company for 20 years, and he's, every time. Talk about somebody who's probably the best example potentially ever of maximizing your minutes.
Yeah.
Is The Miz, right? Just fully taking full advantage of every time he's on the screen, and look where it's gotten his career. So
also slept on the mic.
Totally. He's incredible.
And I think if we're talking versions of wrestlers, 2016 Miz is some of the best version of a wrestler that you'll ever find.
Man, that I rewatch his promo against Cena and Roman, like where he came out when he was IC champion.
Yeah.
That was so dude, I rewatch that promo all the time. He's like, no, that does affect me, the only champion standing in this ring.
Dude,
so good.
Yeah.
All right, so hopping into my number 3, like you said with your past one, this is a guy that you mentioned a little bit ago, and that is William Regal. William Regal is a 4-time tag team champion, 2-time IC champion, 1-time European. He is a 4-time tag team champion, 2-time IC champion, 4-time European champion, and he is obviously a King of the Ring winner. One of his most famous runs was as King Regal. William Regal, like you said earlier, I said I didn't want to mention too much about him because I might be talking about him later. One of the best to ever step into a ring. If you're ever bored and you're just looking for something that's fun, especially if you don't like Bill Goldberg, I think it's very on theme right now. If you're somebody who hates Bill Goldberg, like most wrestling fans, might be a good time to go back and watch his match with William Regal. Famously, William Regal did not know that he was kind of supposed to get squashed. It was not communicated to him, and William Regal was unaware of Bill Goldberg's lack of real wrestling training. So if you haven't seen it, highly suggest it.
There's also clips of, I don't know if it was from like an interview or a documentary or what, but there are clips of William Regal talking about that match specifically.
Yeah, like he didn't know. Yeah, like it wasn't a thing where he was like out there. I mean, according to him, obviously I can't say for sure, but it doesn't seem like it was a thing where he was out there like trying to make him look stupid.
Yeah,
Goldberg just ended up looking stupid, because he just could not hang with William Regal. Like he was just
very few can.
Like it just legitimately just putting a clinic on the mat on Goldberg.
Which I don't know why you would
during Goldberg
book that match
during Goldberg's 176-0 streak. So very
Allegedly.
very funny. moment, but one of the most I would say memorable European champions of all time before it was retired. A two-time IC champion, and in my opinion, especially in the age of our childhood, kind of that ruthless aggression era, one of the best King of the Ring winners, and really, really went with that gimmick. And not only is he so incredibly respected by all of his peers and wrestlers, still with the company. Obviously, William Regal still with the company in a backstage role. I think William Regal as NXT general manager, potentially the best on-screen general manager position ever, and I mean that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with
you.
you.
So incredible as an on-screen authority figure, and continues to just have his finger on the pulse of what professional wrestling is, what it means, what it needs. And if you hear people still coming up today, obviously training in WWE, talk about just picking his brain, one of the smartest wrestlers to ever touch a ring. So William Regal is my number 3 most underrated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on all those points. Obviously, he was my honorable mention. Easily, you could put him on this list like you did. So, for my number 3, Dylan, we have Natalya, a one-time women's tag team champ and a 2-time WWE women's champ. Natalya is somebody who has been a staple in the women's division for a very long time, and I think in ring, she does not get enough credit for her in-ring ability. I think she's just kind of been given kind of the same thing for a long time and never quite given the ball and said, go make something happen. And obviously a great trainer through the Heart Dungeon. She obviously, her and her husband, TJ Wilson, train a lot of people. And obviously you need to be good at wrestling in order to be a good trainer, which she is. And she is someone who I think does not get, A, the credit, but B, the accolades that she should have gotten during her time in WWE. I think she's someone you could have put the title on at any time. I think she's someone who, if they had a women's IC and US title during her prime, like, she would have been probably the best women's IC champ of all time. So Natalya coming in at number 3 on my list.
Yeah, Mark, love that pick. Natalya didn't make it to my list. But she was a name that I wrote down in my long list of my original people. Just one of the staples, if not the staple of the women's division for the last close to 20 years. Her and Naomi, I feel like, are probably the longest tenured women on the roster. Because Naomi's been around a long time at this point as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Natalya has been a technician, has been a professional wrestler in its purest form since the day she debuted, right? I mean, maybe since the day she was born. Obviously, born into the Hart family, and she is one of the greatest mat technicians in women's wrestling history. So, and it's super fun that we're getting to see her do just a lot of stuff like on the indies and different stuff at point now in her career with her stuff as Natty Neidhart. And it will be awesome if WWE kind of lets her go as Natty Neidhart at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk us through your number 2 here.
Yeah. So 2 guys that neither of us have said, both at our top 2.
I'm nervous.
I'm
for one of, because I know I don't have one of your 2.
Okay. Well, my number 2 is none other than John Bradshaw Layfield, JBL. I have JBL as the second most underrated WWE wrestler. JBL is a one-time WWE champion, one-time IC champion, one-time United States champion, 3-time tag team champion, and a one-time European champion. That makes him a Grand Slam champion, believe it or not. JBL, a Grand Slam champion.
Okay.
Not no. JBL is one of the greatest heels of the entire Ruthless Aggression era. And he does not get nearly enough credit for it. Growing up, he was a main event level heel at the same time as guys like Randy Orton and Edge. And whereas in I didn't like those guys, and those guys were evil. Edge was having live sex celebrations in the ring. Randy Orton was punting Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
They were doing stuff that was like kind of objectively cool stuff. JBL was just a dick. Like, JBL did nothing cool. JBL was so unlikable. So just like the amount of work this man put in over his long career, and I'm talking about, this is all stuff post his run in the APA, where it was an incredible tag team, of course, 3-time tag team champion. So JBL, I think, as a figure, as an in-ring competitor, is incredibly underrated. I think his accomplishments and what he was as kind of a staple for the main event division for years. I mean, John Cena won his first championship off of JBL. Let's remember that. I'm just saying, the best way to create an amazing babyface is to put him up against an amazing heel.
That's right.
And John Cena won his first WWE championship against JBL. And I'm not saying that JBL gets credit for what became of John Cena, but
hey,
I mean,
John Cena
like
was saying it.
And JBL obviously played a major factor in being able to elevate John Cena to that main event feud, man. It was his first main event feud, and he beat JBL for the title. So I have JBL as my number 2.
Yeah, I mean, JBL is someone who I just didn't really think of. He is someone, when you think about Cena's greatest feuds, you think of Edge, Randy, and JBL.
Well, and I also got to say, I don't know how I didn't mention this, best lariat of all time probably is the clothesline from Hell, dude.
100%.
Absolute.
I mean, my God.
Just destroys people with that thing.
Insane. And so he is somebody who, going back to what you said, where he did nothing cool, he was somebody who just was evil for the love of being evil, man. He would just do evil shit for no reason. Like, he did it for the love of the game. So, and that's what I think we need more of now, is people who are just doing it because they want to do it. Yeah. We need more people being mean, being evil, just because they like to do it.
He was a wrestling heel in its truest sense.
Yeah.
He had nothing cool about him. There was nothing to like about JBL, and that's what made him so great.
Dude, one of the more memorable things that I remember with JBL was him and Hornswoggle, and they just called him the little bastard for a long time.
The amount of times JBL
murdered,
pretty much killed Hornswoggle.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
All right, that's a great pick. I'll move on to my number 2 here, Dylan, and it is somebody who you actually have brought up already. This person is a 3-time tag team champion, a 2-time United States champion, a 6-time Intercontinental champion, a 1-time NXT champion, a 2-time WWE champion, a 1-time TNA tag team champion, a 1-time TNA champion, a 1-time IWGP Global Heavyweight champion, a 1-time AAA champion, and a 1-time Money in the Bank winner, and that's going to be the show-off Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler, I think, needs to be on this list. I think he's someone who does get a lot of credit now, but I think he gets credit just in his ability to be one of the best sellers of all time. I don't think he gets enough credit in the other categories in professional wrestling. I think that he is somebody who they could have just given the ball at any point in time and said, you're a main eventer. But I think, like he said in interviews, one of his problems was when you become too good of a seller, then you need to start putting other people over to make them look good. So, although I think that's a load of crap and it shouldn't matter at all. But I think Dolph Ziggler doesn't get talked about nearly enough, and I don't think he gets enough credit, especially now in this stage of his career. Being TNA champion, AAA champion, he is definitely checking off a lot of boxes, and he is one of the staples of TNA currently.
No doubt, man. I mean, like I said, not going to argue with you. I think part of my thinking was I was keeping it to his WWE accomplishments and career.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me. Like I said, I put him more on the underutilized category, but I mean, still underrated, still doesn't get the credit he deserves. And one of the best in-ring wrestlers of our entire childhood growing up, honestly. I mean, the guy is so incredible and can put on a show, no pun intended, with pretty much anybody. So
that's right. And so I know for a fact that we have the same number one here, Dylan. So why don't you list off their accomplishments?
Yes. So this is the most underrated wrestler in WWE history, and I don't know if you have their accomplishments outside of WWE written down.
I do.
So yeah, I'll let you follow up. So I have all their so I kept it to only their WWE accomplishments, but I think the people deserve.
I needed to know. I needed to let the people know about outside the WWE.
So I'll read off first. So in the WWE, this man is a 2-time World Heavyweight Champion, a 2-time ECW Champion, a 4-time Intercontinental Champion, an 8-time Tag Team Champion, and a 1-time European Champion.
Then outside of the WWE, he is a 1-time TNA champion, a 2-time NWA World's Champion, a 1-time AEW Trios Champion, and a 2-time AEW TNT Champion.
And that man, of course, is Christian. Also known as Christian Cage, known by many things, known as the Instant Classic, Christian Cage, known as Captain Charisma, known as the Patriarch, obviously most well known as Captain Charisma in WWE. But yeah, Christian is my number one, and I'll go on a little bit of a rant before.
Please.
Go. Very happy to hear that we have the same number one.
That's right.
I'll tell you what, when I was asking around to some wrestling fans that I knew, asking for their most underrated, Christian was the name that came up more than anybody else. So he was gonna be my number one. He was the first name I thought of. For starters, does not get nearly enough credit does not get talked about nearly enough the same way that the Dudleys and the Hardys and even Edge does, for his contribution in the tag team division and, of course, TLC's culmination. Edge and Christian, one of the greatest tag teams in WWE history. I mean, I hated those guys. They were so good at being hated. And I think Christian had just as much star potential as Edge. Edge is just the guy that they decided to roll with at one point.
Yeah.
I think we saw Christian absolutely get the ball and run with it. He feuded with over the WWE title with John Cena early on in John Cena's WWE title reigns. And that was, it seemed like his test. And to me, he ran with it. The crowd was behind him. If you look back at all those moments, all those matches, the crowd actually really loves Christian in that moment. And I feel like that's actually why they went away from it, because they didn't want... I'm not saying that he would have overtaken Cena as the top babyface by any means. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying that Cena was their top babyface at the time, and Vince was trying to make sure that stayed. They threw Jericho in that feud that I felt was very unnecessary. Christian is a main event level caliber star, and we've seen him do it in other companies. We've seen him do it in TNA. We've seen him do it now in AEW. And he is, Edge and Christian, one of the greatest tag teams of all time. I'd put him on the Mount Rushmore you can argue that they are the greatest. You know what I mean? Like you can
They're
make
probably a
arguments.
lot of people's greatest.
Yeah, so you can absolutely make arguments that they are the greatest. Um, and of course, a two-time world heavyweight champion. He did, of course, end up winning it. It doesn't. It's not the greatest world heavyweight championship reigns. I think that's one of the things that's remembered sadly on, you know what I mean, with Edge retiring and then Christian winning the title, which was a great feel good moment. But then we didn't need, like, they still made Edge help him get the win. And then he won it again off of Randy Orton through disqualification. Like, just never letting Christian really show what he was capable of on a main event level. Incredible on the mic, incredible in the ring, incredible at reinventing himself. Just the complete full package. And if you're unfamiliar with just how incredible Christian can be and how incredible he is, watch his work outside of WWE. His early work in TNA and TNA NWA, where he was a multiple time world champion over there. When for those who don't know, the world title of TNA was the NWA title for a significant portion. So he held that title over there when that was the main title being represented on TNA. And then, of course, his work as the Patriarch, showing how incredible he is as a heel. And he's had that in him the entire time since his run with Edge and Christian back in the day. So, in my opinion, he was a guy who could have done and could have been just as big a star, if not a bigger star than Edge, especially with the sad early retirement that happened with Edge. Christian could have done so much more, but just never given the opportunity. But despite that, despite not getting his opportunities, still accomplished an incredible amount. All those title reigns. He is a pinnacle of what is become people's favorite match probably ever, potentially, which is TLC. A lot of people's favorite match, one of the most famous matches ever. And he does not get enough credit for all that he has done over his career. So I'll let you talk about him a little bit now.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously a lot of the points you said, I fully agree on. He is, sadly, it's what we kind of see when tag teams get split up is they pick one person and then they pick them to kind of push a lot. And that person was Edge, although they had somebody else who could have probably just as good in Christian Cage. And it's just somebody that it was probably one of their biggest misses that they've had, of somebody who's so ready, so locked and loaded, so much potential just sitting there, and they just never said, let's try that out for a little bit. Let's give them something good to do. So, so yeah, it's just like Christian Cage, it is, I guess it's good now that he's getting a lot of the credit for his work, especially in AEW. I think he's one of the better things going on there, but just how important he was during with TNA, with NWA, during that time when TNA was starting to make some noise, when you couldn't really have a ton of competition with WWE.
Totally. And let's get this, like, Christian, I also want to make this very clear. Christian went to TNA before Kurt Angle. Like, Christian was the first big star to go from WWE to TNA. And it worked. Like, his career was so much better moving forward because of that. And not that his second run in WWE, even though he won a World Heavyweight Championship, it was, I mean, not that that was a better run than he had the first time, but Christian, if he didn't do the work outside of WWE, we wouldn't have seen the proof right in front of us that the guy's a main event star. So I'm so happy that he did all the work that he did outside of WWE and continues to do work in AEW, because WWE never gave him the chance to blossom like he should have been able to.
Yep. So you guys let us know in the comments, who do you think is the most underrated WWE wrestler of all time? Make sure to smash that subscribe button, ring that bell if you want to get a notification every single time we upload a video. With that being said, we'll catch you in the next one.